And greetings. We're here with Dr. Maria Millan, President and CEO of the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, better known as CIRM. Maria, let's start with a lot of our conferences that we all attend, scientific conferences, medical conferences, are relatively focused. They're a theme behind them. But this conference is a little bit different. Why do you think this Vatican conference is valuable?
Thank you, Max. It's a pleasure to be here. I think that the title of this meeting, Mind, Body, and Soul, captures it so well. It's treating the whole person. So from my perspective at CIRM, whose mission is to accelerate stem cell treatments to patients with unmet medical needs, I am so excited about the scientific advancements in regenerative medicine. And we really are on the cusp of being able to offer more and more curative treatments for previously incurable unmet medical needs. But as a physician, a daughter, a niece, and a friend, I've seen firsthand that any medical treatment is not successful unless it treats the whole person. At CIRM, we are fortunate that patient advocates are part of our fabric of our scientific and business enterprise, so we are reminded every day of this. So let's start with the mind. No matter how promising the science is or the potential treatment, it will get nowhere if the mind says no. There are major impediments to this. They are lack of information and lack of trust, and these two are intertwined. It goes back to something I once heard, that our success as a community, as a society, hinges on how successful we are at caring for our most vulnerable. Even if we think we've communicated or put out the right materials, that's not enough. We need to put ourselves out there to understand whether or not our community stakeholders, our patient communities, their families truly understand the options, the science behind it, and the medical options that they have before them. We need to find a way to enable those who they relate to and who they trust to bring them information in different ways. The soul. Information needs to be delivered in the context of cultural experiences and religious beliefs, and this varies from community to community. And so we need to take that into account as we connect with our patient communities. In addition, I've heard patients actually who have debilitating, life-threatening diseases say that their disease has become part of their identity, their relationships, their life. They actually fear what may happen if they lose that part of their identity once they are cured or treated for that condition. This all needs to be taken into account. It needs to be worked into the whole treatment plan. So this type of meeting really captures all those very important facets to this prism.
So I think, as you said, we've learned from public health lessons in the past that the message and the messenger have to be appropriate to whomever you're trying to reach, if you expect to actually reach them, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said.
So Maria, I know that back in November of 2020, the voters of California were visionary enough to approve refunding CIRM for an additional $5.5 billion. It's a lot of money. What do you hope to do with that money?
Yes, Max, we are fortunate the California citizens had voted to invest more in science. They saw the promise and the initial successes of CIRM in its first iteration, with over 1,000 programs, critical infrastructure, educational programs, and 68 first-in-human clinical trials, and 90 total, including those that we funded early on that went on to go to trials themselves. So we could intend to continue that mission to accelerate regenerative medicine science and treatments for patients with unmet medical needs, specifically, but not exclusively, diseases of the brain as a focus of this. We are aging as a society, and we're facing the aging diseases, including Alzheimer's and other forms of brain diseases. To train and build leaders and scientists and workforce in this new field. To gear up our clinical centers, both in academia and in the community centers, to be able to be familiar, trained, and to deliver these new therapies to patients. And again, to make sure that the education and communication are really well done. And to enable equitable, accessible, and affordable access to these treatments. There's a specification in the new initiative to set up infrastructure and commit funds in order to do that. Because after all, we can similar to the aspects of communication and education I mentioned. If we do not make these accessible and it does not get to patients who we develop them for, we really haven't gotten where we need to go.
I think that's so important because as you mentioned, the research is one aspect of it, but if we don't have people to implement it and we don't have people who are willing to accept these treatments and technologies or even just the clinical trials, it's going to become a laboratory phenomenon that doesn't really improve the health of people. So you touched on social justice, which is clearly a very important topic these days. How is CIRM going to try to address that? Because that's been an issue both in terms of uptake and delivery of some of these groundbreaking technologies.
Absolutely, Max. This is a priority for us. And again, it follows from the points we were just discussing previously. If we do not get the treatments to the patients in need, where are we? And certainly this COVID pandemic has really highlighted and made very clear the health disparities and the difficulties in being able to reach the disproportionately affected and underrepresented, underserved communities. So already CIRM has integrated into its funding and research programs a way to partner with our scientific and clinical researchers to address diversity and equity in the research, both for clinical trials in which there are plans in place to reach the underserved, disproportionately affected communities, to set up the mechanisms to get the education out there and to actually deliver these to patients, but even in earlier stage programs to make sure when we have genomics data sets and cell models that they are represented of our diverse community and not just a segment of our community. So that is a very deliberate effort on behalf that CIRM is undergoing, as well as other agencies such as the NIH.
Mm-hmm. And Maria, one other thing here quickly is that I think there's, and I've heard this in so many different venues, there's no substitute for people getting treatment from people who look and sound like them, both from the delivery side and also from the research side. And CIRM is involved in helping to train and increase the diversity in all of those aspects?
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to highlight our education program, which is really spectacular, where we have a program called the Bridges program that offers opportunities for students who tend to be from underserved and underrepresented communities, often in our state schools or community colleges, and offer them the opportunity to come in and work in some of the more established stem cell labs in our University of California and our Stanfords and on those institutions. And we've trained over 1,600 undergraduates in the Bridges program. The majority of them end up going into either a career in science or in to graduate school or medical school. 51% of them are first-generation college students.
Wow.
So they will be the ambassadors, the emissaries to their communities. And they will look like their communities. And in addition, add to the value proposition and the talent pool in that space. So that is definitely an important piece of it. And in fact, also in our funding programs, not just in our educational programs, but in the research programs, we have also partnered with our academic investigators to ensure that where they can, to promote this type of diversity within their teams. So we are very deliberate about that.
Right, providing the opportunity is so important.